For most of us, this is not our first Ash Wednesday, but I sure hope there are some people that this is their first Ash Wednesday joining us. We often hear in the liturgy, we hear from the priest during the homily about prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And I'd like to share with you some very simple practices. It's not confined to religious. It's really a gift that anyone can receive who believes that Jesus is Lord. You and I have the capacity to come in direct contact with God. I used to make long trips sometimes, so I would fly to Rome. And I think the worst thing that I could have experienced is somebody saying, "Oh, by the way, the Pope wants to see you right now." Well, I love the Pope, but I've been sitting in this plane for 12 hours and I feel like I'm not ready. Lent is a time of transitioning, of preparing, and just little ways of preparing, just to allow God to look at us. How many of you are parents and you love to stand by the crib or by the bedside and look at your beautiful child sleeping? That's an experience of God. That's what God does to you. He can't take his eyes off of you. Prayer is a time of coming in contact with God. Very often we use words. Very often we don't. We simply rest with the person that we know loves us. For St. Teresa says, we can share our hearts as they are. We don't have to pretty them up. Sometimes we need that transition time to turn to God in prayer, but not to put makeup on, but to let ourselves let down the guard and be in the presence of God. We're called for almsgiving. And sometimes almsgiving means let's cut a part of our budget out and give it to the poor. Give it to those who have no means. That's valid. Sometimes our almsgiving is giving mental space to people we live with without judging them. That's almsgiving. Not criticizing mentally our neighbor next door who leaves the garbage can in my driveway. There's an almsgiving there. And just simply quietly, peacefully removing the garbage can. There's so many ways to do almsgiving. Fasting, no fasting. And depends on our health. But St. Thomas Aquinas says the very first virtue we all need to practice is restraint. Learning to say no to ourselves, to disordered desires, to put our desires under the direction of our intellect and our will, and under the direction of grace, God's grace. So we do fasting. And sometimes it's fasting from food, or the food we like, or the amount that we like. But very often fasting is also what we don't say, or what we don't consume on media, social media. Sisters have a practice that we fast from electronics on Sunday, that we rest, we read books, we talk to each other, we have time in prayer. Prayer, fasting, and almsgiving are essential to the journey with Jesus, to a new way of living, to a deeper form of life. And we're all invited. No one is excluded from the wedding feast.